Have you ever walked into a room and noticed someone who said almost nothing, yet somehow everyone noticed them? They weren't loud. They didn't try to impress. But their presence spoke volumes. That's not luck. That's silent attractiveness. And in a world screaming for attention, the people who master this quiet power stand out without ever needing to shout. You don't need perfect looks. You don't need wealth. And you certainly don't need to beg for anyone's approval. What you need is alignment with your values, your presence, and your inner strength. The Stoics didn't chase popularity. They cultivated character. And that's what we're doing here. So if you're ready to become the kind of person who draws people in without even trying, this video is for you. We're breaking down 11 powerful, socially magnetic habits rooted in Stoic wisdom that help you build quiet confidence, self-respect, and emotional gravity. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's explore how to be silently attractive without ever selling your soul for attention. Let's begin. Number 1. Embrace authentic independence. If there is one trait that defines silent attractiveness, it's this: you don't need others to make you feel whole. You are already grounded, already enough. This is not arrogance, it's clarity. And no philosophy has explored this deeper than Stoicism. Epictetus, born into slavery, rose to become one of the most powerful minds in ancient philosophy. He taught, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." What he meant was simple, but radical. The person who depends on external approval will always be a prisoner, but the one who turns inward, who roots their worth in virtue and reason, becomes untouchable. This is the core of authentic independence, not needing validation to feel valuable, not seeking attention to feel seen. The Stoic path teaches you to become emotionally sovereign. You can walk away from chaos without feeling empty. You can say no without guilt. You can be alone without feeling lonely. And in a world built on noise, that kind of quiet strength is magnetic. Marcus Aurelius is a living blueprint of this idea. As Emperor of Rome, he could have surrounded himself with luxury, flattery, and endless distraction. But instead, he chose stillness. He journaled in the quiet hours of the morning. Not for fame, but for truth. He reminded himself daily to detach from ego, to stay grounded, to live according to nature and reason. "The happiness of your life," he wrote, "depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This wasn't a slogan. It was a survival strategy, because he understood something most people still miss. When you govern your mind, you govern your life. Fast forward to today, and we see the same principle in someone like Keanu Reeves. He doesn't posture. He doesn't explain. He doesn't perform. He gives off the aura of someone who doesn't need to impress you. And that's exactly why you're impressed. He lives modestly. He gives generously. He protects his privacy. And because he doesn't need your attention, he earns your respect. People are drawn to him, not because he's loud, but because he's real. That's the power of someone who knows who they are. When you're authentically independent, your presence shifts. You walk into a room without trying to be the center of it. You listen more than you speak. You're comfortable letting others have the spotlight. And people feel that because deep down, we all crave the company of someone who doesn't secretly need something from us. Someone who is at peace with themselves. That kind of energy is rare and irresistible. So if you want to be silently attractive, don't chase attention. Build alignment. Let go of the need to explain yourself. Cultivate a life where your peace doesn't depend on anyone's reaction. And watch what happens. People will lean in, not because you tried to win them over, but because you didn't need to. That's authentic independence, and it's the first pillar of becoming a truly magnetic presence. Number 2, master the art of silent elegance. Silent elegance is not about fashion labels or polished speeches. It's about presence. It's the grace with which you move through the world, the calm confidence in your posture, and the quiet dignity in how you treat others. The Stoics believed that true nobility had nothing to do with birthright or riches. It came from how you carried yourself. Seneca once wrote, "Let your deeds match your words, and let your words be few." In other words, elegance isn't about display, it's about restraint, about choosing stillness over spectacle. We've been conditioned to believe that the loudest voice commands the most respect, but real influence doesn't shout. It whispers. The Stoic walks into a room and doesn't compete for attention. He commands it through composure. His clothing isn't meant to show off wealth. It reflects intention and care. His posture isn't arrogant. It's aligned. His tone isn't forceful. It's calm, clear, and purposeful. Every part of him communicates one thing. I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it. Take the Roman general and Stoic Cato, the younger. He was known not for excess, but for restraint. While other senators wore bright robes to flaunt status, Cato wore simple garments and walked barefoot in all seasons. He wasn't trying to impress. He was trying to remind himself and others that virtue mattered more than vanity. And people listened to him, not because he demanded it, but because his dignity made him impossible to ignore. In our modern world, silent elegance is rare. But when it appears, it leaves a mark. Think of someone like Michelle Obama. Her elegance isn't loud. It's rooted in composure, emotional intelligence, and respect. She speaks with clarity, not force. She moves with confidence, not ego. She wears her power lightly, which makes it all the more visible. That's the paradox of silent elegance. The less you perform, the more you're perceived. Elegance also means knowing when to speak and when not to. It's knowing that silence, when used wisely, can say more than any clever remark. It's the ability to respond with calm when others react with chaos. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." To remain elegant in the face of disrespect is power. To rise above pettiness without losing your peace is elegance in motion. And it's not just about how you act in public. Silent elegance begins in private. How you keep your space, how you speak to yourself, how you move through the quiet hours when no one's watching. Do you bring intention to your habits, or are you rushing through life mindlessly? The quietly attractive person doesn't just look good, they move with purpose. They treat every action as a reflection of inner order. So master the art of silent elegance, not for the world's applause, but as a discipline of your own character. When your presence speaks louder than your voice, you've tapped into a kind of power that never needs to beg for attention. It naturally earns it. Number 3, the subtle scent of sophistication. You might not realize it, but people remember how you make them feel. And scent plays a powerful role in that experience. It's invisible, yet unforgettable. It doesn't announce itself with volume, but it lingers long after you've left the room. The Stoics may not have worn modern cologne, but they understood deeply that our presence, seen or unseen, should be intentional, refined, and harmonious with nature. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In the same way, your body, your presence, carries an energy that subtly influences others. When cultivated with care, it can elevate you from forgettable to unforgettable. Silent attractiveness isn't just about what you say or how you move. It's about the full sensory impression you create. Smell is the most emotional of the senses. It's tied directly to memory, instinct, and the subconscious. A refined, clean, and consistent scent doesn't just make you pleasant to be around, it signals discipline. It says, "I care about the details you can't see." That's the kind of thoughtfulness that people pick up on, even if they can't name it. The Stoic would call this living with eupraxia. Right action, even in small things. Think of someone like David Beckham. He rarely speaks in public. He doesn't need to. His grooming, his posture, his scent. Yes, he's known for his fragrances, do much of the talking for him. There's nothing loud or aggressive about his presence, but it is deeply intentional. Or take Audrey Hepburn, whose elegance extended into every detail, including her understated signature fragrance. They weren't just stylish, they were curated, not in a performative way, but in a way that reflected respect for themselves and others. The Stoics would say, "You are your own standard. No one else sets the bar for how you show up." So when you take the time to select a scent that aligns with your nature, not something trendy or overpowering, but something balanced, clean, and subtle, you are engaging in a practice of self-respect. You're telling yourself, "I'm worth showing up for." You're reminding others, even without words, that you live with care. That kind of energy attracts people, not because you're trying to impress, but because you've made excellence your default. But there's a deeper layer to this. Scent is also about memory. A single whiff can trigger a cascade of feelings: comfort, attraction, curiosity, nostalgia. If your scent becomes consistent, it becomes part of your identity. You are no longer just a face or a voice. You are a presence. You are the calm after the storm, the stillness in a crowded room. And yes, even the lingering memory someone can't explain but can't forget. Of course, this isn't about vanity. The Stoics would warn against that. It's about order, dignity. It's about honoring the body as the vessel of your virtue. Epictetus said, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." So choose a scent that reflects your spirit. Quiet, composed, enduring, something that doesn't scream for attention, but rewards it. And let that become part of your silent language. No explanation needed. Just the subtle, sophisticated reminder that greatness is found not in shouting, but in the small, deliberate acts of care. That's the scent of someone who lives on purpose, and that's what makes you unforgettable, without ever raising your voice. Number 4, be fully present. In a world addicted to distraction, presence is a superpower. Most people don't really listen. They nod while scrolling, speak while rehearsing their next line, and interact without ever truly seeing the other person. But the moment someone gives you their full, undivided attention, it hits differently. You feel respected, valued, understood. That's the power of presence. And it's one of the most silently attractive traits a person can develop. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, because when you fully inhabit the moment, you unlock a kind of depth and gravity that cannot be faked. Presence is rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. It doesn't matter how articulate you are, or how impressive your achievements may be. If your mind is somewhere else, people feel it. You become forgettable. But when you truly arrive, when your eyes meet theirs, when your body language is open, when your energy is calm and centered, you don't need to dominate the conversation. People will feel drawn to you without knowing why, because full presence communicates something few ever offer. I am here with you, not just near you. Seneca taught that life is not short, but wasted in distraction. He said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." When you practice being present, you begin to live more deliberately. You listen more carefully. You observe the world around you with new clarity, and you give others a sense of peace just by being still. It's not about trying to be interesting. It's about being interested. And that shift changes everything. Because when you make people feel seen, they remember you. Think of Fred Rogers, yes, Mr. Rogers. His voice was soft, his demeanor calm. But when he spoke to someone, especially a child, he gave them his full, patient attention. No rush, no performance. And because of that, people felt loved, safe, and deeply valued. He wasn't flashy, but he was unforgettable. That's what happens when presence meets compassion. It leaves a mark without ever raising a voice. In more modern terms, consider someone like Robin Williams, known for his comedic energy, yes, but also for how intensely present he was with those he loved. His humor wasn't just clever, it was connected. He noticed people, he made space for their emotions, and even in silence, he carried a presence that was undeniably alive. That's what made him attractive. Not just as an actor, but as a human being. Being fully present also means slowing down, breathing, putting your phone away, making eye contact that isn't hurried or guarded. It means asking questions without needing to hijack the conversation. And most of all, it means resisting the temptation to check out when things get uncomfortable. The Stoics practiced this as a daily discipline, to be where they were with full awareness, even when the moment was painful or boring. Because real strength is not just in action, it's in attention. So if you want to be silently attractive, don't try to impress people. Witness them. Don't rush to speak. Listen so carefully that they feel heard in a way they didn't know they needed. Don't be half in, half out. Be all there, because in a world that's always somewhere else, the one who stays rooted becomes the most magnetic person in the room. Not loud, not flashy, just fully alive. And that's a presence no one forgets. Number 5, a touch of mystery. There's something undeniably attractive about not knowing everything, about someone who holds a piece of themselves back, not out of fear, but out of strength. In a world obsessed with oversharing, the person who moves with quiet intention, who reveals only what is necessary, becomes a mystery others want to solve. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't believe in needless display. They believed in control, not just of the emotions, but of the narrative. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because not everything needs to be explained. Sometimes the power lies in what you don't say. Mystery is not manipulation, it's self-respect. It's the ability to know your worth without needing to broadcast it. The Stoic isn't hiding. They're choosing what to reveal, when to reveal it, and to whom. This deliberate withholding creates gravity. It creates curiosity. It makes people lean in instead of scroll past. Because when you keep a part of yourself sacred, your dreams, your scars, your strategies, you signal that your inner world is not public property. That level of self-containment is rare, and that rarity becomes a lure. Think of someone like James Dean. He said very little in interviews, kept his personal life guarded, and carried an air of emotional complexity that wasn't easy to define. And yet he became a cultural icon, or consider sad, the singer with the timeless voice and the almost invisible public persona. She rarely gives interviews. She disappears for years at a time, and when she reappears, people pay attention. Why? Because her silence isn't empty. It's intentional, and that makes every word she does share feel sacred. Mystery also means allowing people to wonder. You don't need to explain your every move, defend every boundary, or justify your journey. The Stoic mindset protects your peace by refusing to offer your soul to every stranger's judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, when people try to bait you into overreacting, over-explaining, or oversharing, don't. Your silence speaks louder. Your restraint becomes your armor. And mystery isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being whole enough on your own that you don't need to be fully understood to feel valid. You reveal parts of yourself slowly, not as a performance, but as a gift. You understand that connection doesn't come from dumping your entire life story in one breath. It comes from pacing, presence, and discernment. You're not hiding who you are. You're protecting the sacredness of your becoming. Even in relationships, mystery keeps the fire alive. When you keep learning, growing, evolving, and don't always announce every change, it gives those close to you something new to discover. You don't become predictable, you become dynamic. Not because you're trying to be elusive, but because you're living. You're exploring your own mind before offering it to someone else. That inner life, that quiet complexity, becomes irresistible. So if you want to be silently attractive, don't rush to be known. Let others earn your story. Share in layers, not floods. Speak when it matters. And remember, the most powerful rooms are often the ones filled with silence, not noise. The same is true for people. Those who keep a little mystery don't disappear. They linger, in memory, in thought, in desire. And that's not a trick. That's wisdom, wrapped in stillness, guarded by self-respect, and noticed by everyone who's paying attention. Number 6, cultivate cultural wisdom. In a world growing more divided and reactive by the day, few things are as quietly attractive as someone who listens deeply, thinks broadly, and embraces perspectives beyond their own. Cultural wisdom isn't just about knowing facts or quoting books. It's about curiosity. It's about humility. It's the willingness to admit that your way is not the only way. And the truth often lies in the places you haven't looked yet. The Stoics were travelers, learners, observers of human nature across cultures. They didn't shut the world out. They studied it. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. 1. If your thoughts are narrow, your soul stays small. But if your mind stretches to understand the unfamiliar, you become someone others feel enriched just to be around. To be silently attractive, you must expand your view of the world without announcing it. You don't need to name-drop philosophers or flash your passport stamps. You just need to carry yourself with the kind of quiet depth that only comes from listening to stories other than your own. When someone speaks from a place of cultural understanding, you can feel it. Not in what they say, but in what they don't say. There's no arrogance, no need to win, just insight. Just awareness, just that rare kind of calm that makes others feel safe to be themselves. The Stoic philosopher Seneca was one of the most educated men of his time. Not because he was loud about it, but because he never stopped learning from the world around him. He read texts from foreign lands, debated with people from different schools of thought, and welcomed challenges to his beliefs. He wrote, "You should be open to ideas from all sides, not just your own camp. That's what makes you compelling. The ability to sit with disagreement without being shaken, to navigate unfamiliar customs without judgment, to see yourself as a student of the world, not the center of it." Look to someone like Anthony Bourdain. He didn't wear a suit or speak in grand philosophical terms, but he listened. He asked questions with respect. He immersed himself in the culture of every place he visited, eating their food, learning their history, honoring their pain. And because he approached every culture with reverence rather than superiority, people felt drawn to him. He didn't try to impress the world. He let the world impress upon him. That's cultural wisdom in action. You don't have to travel the globe to cultivate this. You just have to be willing to see beyond the walls of your own upbringing. Read books from different cultures. Sit with someone whose life experience makes you uncomfortable. Learn a new language or try a dish you can't pronounce. And most of all, listen. Really listen. Not to reply, but to understand. The Stoics believed wisdom was the reward for the patient observer, not the loud interrupter. And that wisdom, once developed, becomes visible in how you carry yourself. People feel the difference. They feel more seen, more respected, more curious, just by being in your presence. Cultural wisdom also teaches you emotional restraint. When you've studied enough perspectives, you don't rush to label or condemn. You begin to understand that most people act from fear, habit, or inherited pain. And while you still hold boundaries, you do so without hatred. That balance between discernment and compassion makes you unforgettable, not because you speak loudly, but because your voice carries weight. So cultivate cultural wisdom, not to appear intelligent, but to become whole. The more you understand others, the more you understand yourself. And the more you understand yourself, the more your presence becomes a reflection of quiet strength, expansive awareness, and the kind of rare emotional intelligence that no one can fake. You'll walk through the world with more grace, more clarity, and more power. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that changes people, quietly and completely. Number 7, the heartbeat of compassion. There is a kind of strength that doesn't look like power. It doesn't speak in commands or wear a hardened face. It doesn't demand control. It simply sees people. That strength is compassion. Not the soft, performative kind, but the deep, unshakable kind that comes from being grounded in your own pain and transformed by it. The Stoics were not cold or emotionless, as many assume. They were fierce advocates for empathy grounded in reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" That kind of humility is the soil where true compassion grows. To be silently attractive, you must become someone who doesn't just walk into a room with presence, but with warmth. Not a needy warmth, not one that bends over backwards to please, but a quiet warmth that makes people feel safe. It's in the way you look someone in the eye without judgment, in how you speak to the waiter, the cleaner, the stranger on the street. It's how you sit with someone in pain without rushing to fix them. That ability to hold space, to simply be there without turning it into a performance, is one of the rarest and most powerful forms of human connection. The Stoics believed that we are all part of a greater whole. They called it the cosmopolis, a universal city where every human being shares in the same dignity. Epictetus said, "Remember that you are an actor in a play, the nature of which is determined by the playwright. You didn't choose your role, neither did they." This perspective invites compassion without condescension. You don't see people as broken. You see them as human, struggling, like you, to play their part with grace. Think of someone like the Dalai Lama. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't posture or boast. And yet the moment he enters a room, people feel a shift. Not because he's powerful in the worldly sense, but because his compassion radiates through everything. His smile, his presence, his calm gaze. That's not weakness. That's a lifetime of disciplined inner work. That's what happens when someone has confronted their own suffering and chosen to transform it into service. Or consider someone closer to home, maybe a grandparent, a teacher, a mentor, someone who didn't always have the perfect words, but who made you feel seen, safe, and accepted. You remember them not because they dazzled you, but because they stayed with you. They showed up in quiet ways, and their compassion became a shelter. The heartbeat of compassion isn't loud. It's not about being nice. It's about being present without an agenda, listening without needing to respond, caring without needing credit. It's about seeing the pain beneath someone's anger, the fear behind their arrogance, and choosing, whenever possible, to meet them not with ego, but with understanding. The Stoics weren't sentimental. They were clear-eyed. But in that clarity, they found the space to forgive, to extend grace, and to remember that cruelty is often the mask of suffering. So if you want to be silently attractive, train yourself in the art of compassion. Start by softening your inner dialogue. How you speak to yourself shapes how you treat others. Then extend that gentleness outward. Don't rescue people. Respect them. Don't carry their weight. Sit beside them while they carry it. Be the calm in the storm. The quiet presence that doesn't ask for recognition, but changes everything simply by being there. That kind of compassion doesn't fade. It's not a tactic. It's a legacy. And when you live from that place, people won't always remember what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Number 8, laughter and joy. In a world addicted to seriousness, there's something quietly irresistible about someone who carries joy. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind, but the kind that radiates from a soul at peace. True joy doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to dominate the room or make every conversation about itself. It simply is. It lives in the small things. The half smile that says, "I'm not taking this moment too seriously. I the spark in the eyes that reveals a mind light enough to find humor even in the difficult. The Stoics knew that laughter, when grounded in wisdom, wasn't weakness. It was strength. Seneca wrote, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." In other words, the ability to find joy, even in imperfection, is the mark of someone truly free. Joy is magnetic because it signals something rare. Someone who is not at war with themselves. Someone who can step back and see the absurdity in life without needing to control every outcome. The Stoic doesn't deny hardship, but they also don't drown in it. They see pain, loss, betrayal, and yet they still look for beauty, for meaning, for reasons to laugh, even if it's just for a moment. That's not naive. That's courageous. Because in a culture that feeds on outrage, joy is a radical act. Think of someone like Robin Williams, not just as a comedian, but as a man who gave the gift of laughter from a place of deep empathy. His humor wasn't shallow. It was layered, soulful, and born from having lived through darkness. People didn't just laugh at what he said, they felt seen by it. Or take Maya Angelou. Her grace, her poetry, and her quiet joy made her unforgettable. She once said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel." And she made people feel hopeful, even in the face of pain. Joy, in this sense, isn't loud or performative. It's rooted in gratitude. It's being able to walk through an ordinary day and notice the light through the trees, the rhythm of a good conversation, the ridiculousness of your own overthinking. Marcus Aurelius himself found joy in simple things. His son's laughter, a quiet moment at dawn, the feeling of doing his duty well. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's not fluff. That's clarity. Because joy isn't a result of perfect circumstances. It's a decision to stay open-hearted in an unpredictable world. Laughter, too, is a form of humility. It shows you don't take yourself too seriously. You're willing to look foolish, to admit you were wrong, to drop your guard for a moment and connect. That vulnerability is powerful because it's real, and people feel safe around someone who can laugh, not to escape pain, but to soften it. The Stoics would call this euthymia, a state of inner cheerfulness that comes from living in alignment with one's values. If you want to be silently attractive, cultivate joy not as a mask, but as a habit. Find humor in your own flaws. Laugh without needing to be the funniest. Smile without needing a reason. Your joy will be noticed, not because it's loud, but because it's rare. People are drawn to those who make them feel lighter. Not in a superficial way, but in a soul-deep way that whispers, if they can carry joy through life's chaos, maybe I can too. So laugh, really laugh. Let your joy be the music others didn't know they needed to hear. Let it echo quietly in your presence. And let it remind the world that strength isn't always stern. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it dances, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is the permission for someone else to feel good again. Number 9, the art of self-care. To care for yourself deeply, intentionally, and without apology is not vanity. It's mastery. It's a statement to the world that your body, your mind, and your soul are not afterthoughts. They are the foundation of everything you build. The Stoics didn't use the term self-care, but they lived it in principle. They understood that a neglected body leads to a chaotic mind, and a chaotic mind can never lead a virtuous life. Epictetus was clear. No man is free who is not master of himself, and mastery begins with maintenance. True self-care isn't indulgent. It's disciplined. It's not bubble baths and escapism, though rest has its place. It's rising early to strengthen your body. It's nourishing yourself with food that fuels, rather than numbs. It's going for a walk instead of reaching for distraction. It's choosing stillness when your impulses want escape. When you care for yourself with consistency, you become quietly attractive. Not because you're chasing perfection, but because you're radiating order, and people are drawn to that kind of order like gravity. The Stoic view of self-care was rooted in respect, first and foremost, for the self. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at his time, still carved out time to journal, reflect, breathe, and train his body. He knew that his responsibilities to others demanded that he remain anchored in himself. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power starts with the daily rituals that reinforce inner calm: sleep, reflection, physical movement, solitude. None of these are glamorous. All of them are necessary. Look to someone like Jocko Willink, a former Navy SEAL turned Stoic spirited modern leader. He wakes at 4:30 a.m. every day. He trains his body before sunrise. He journals. He eats clean. Why? Because he understands that self-discipline is self-respect, and the person who respects themselves doesn't need applause. Their life speaks for itself. That kind of self-care is not performative, it's foundational, and it sends a powerful message. I don't live reactively. I lead myself first. Even in quieter forms, self-care makes a mark. Reading instead of scrolling, saying no instead of stretching too thin, taking time to breathe before speaking. All these choices send subtle signals to others. You are not desperate. You are not unmoored. You are centered. And that centeredness becomes a refuge for the people around you. Not because you're trying to save them, but because your calm gives them permission to find their own. Self-care also means knowing when to step away, when to protect your energy, when to walk into nature, feel the sun, move your body, and remember that you are not just a mind. You are a full, living being. The Stoics practiced this through contemplation and retreat. They stepped back to see clearly. You must do the same. You cannot offer peace if you never sit in your own. So if you want to be silently attractive, let your self-care speak for you. Let your routines reflect your priorities. Let your choices show that you live with awareness, not impulse. And let your presence radiate the kind of calm that only comes from tending to your own soul. Because when people see someone who honors themselves, they instinctively feel the pull, they sense the strength, and they wonder, not what you do, but how you became the kind of person who lives like that. The answer, of course, is simple. You cared. Consistently, quietly, relentlessly, and in a world starving for balance, that kind of care is one of the most attractive forces there is. Number 10, emotional intelligence and social awareness. Some people walk into a room and instantly shift the energy, not because they dominate it, but because they understand it. They read the room like a language. They speak carefully, listen intentionally, and respond, not react. This is emotional intelligence, the quiet superpower of those who don't just know what they feel, but why they feel it, and how those feelings ripple outward. And when combined with social awareness, it becomes one of the most silently attractive traits a person can possess. The Stoics knew this. They trained themselves not to suppress emotion, but to master it. As Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Emotional intelligence is forged in adversity, and it reveals itself in restraint, empathy, and grace under pressure. The person with emotional intelligence doesn't take things personally. They pause before they speak. They don't lash out, even when provoked. They observe, they absorb. They respond with clarity rather than confusion. And this steadiness becomes magnetic, especially in a world where reactivity is the norm. Emotional intelligence is not about being agreeable. It's about being intentional. It's the ability to say the right thing, at the right time, in the right way. Not because you're calculating, but because you're aware. The Stoic approach to emotions wasn't denial, it was discipline. Marcus Aurelius, writing from the pressures of war and politics, constantly reminded himself not to become what he despised. "When you wake up in the morning," he wrote, "tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, but I must not be hurt by any of them." That's emotional maturity? He didn't expect others to change. He expected himself to rise. We see this principle in people like Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, he emerged not bitter, but composed. He shook hands with his former captors. He negotiated peace instead of revenge. That's not weakness. That's extraordinary emotional intelligence. He understood his role in a larger story. He understood that dignity in leadership begins with inner mastery, and that emotional control is not about bottling up. It's about channeling energy where it matters. Social awareness, meanwhile, is about understanding context. It's knowing when to speak and when to be silent, when to assert and when to yield, when to comfort and when to confront. It's noticing the subtle discomfort in someone's eyes, the shift in tone, the quiet withdrawal of energy, and it's responding with sensitivity, not manipulation, not performance, but care. That level of attunement doesn't come from ego. It comes from stillness. Think of someone like Viola Davis. Watch how she carries herself in interviews, how she pauses before speaking, how she makes room for others. Her intelligence isn't loud, it's rooted. She doesn't just speak with power, she listens with power. And because of that, people feel seen in her presence. That's what emotional intelligence looks like in motion. If you want to be silently attractive, develop this skill set. Start by being brutally honest with yourself. What are your emotional triggers? Where do you lose control? What patterns do you repeat without realizing? The Stoics practiced this daily. They journaled, they reflected, they rehearsed their responses in advance. Not to control the world, but to control their reactions to it. When you become emotionally intelligent, you no longer chase validation. You no longer crumble when criticized. You observe your emotions without being ruled by them. And that ability, to stay centered in chaos, to bring calm into tension, to be kind without being weak, makes you someone others respect instinctively. Not because you demand it, but because your very presence teaches it. So be that person, the one who speaks calmly when others scream, who listens when others interrupt, who remembers that behind every face is a story, and behind every reaction is a wound. Let your emotional intelligence become a quiet signal to the world. I've done my inner work. I'm still doing it. And you're safe around me. That safety, combined with depth, is the kind of power that never needs to advertise itself. It's felt, it's remembered, and it's deeply, unmistakably attractive. Number 11. Consistency and reliability. In a world obsessed with quick wins, flashy entrances, and viral moments, there is something profoundly attractive about someone who simply shows up, over and over again. No drama, no grand declarations, just quiet, steady action. The Stoics didn't admire charisma. They admired character. And character is built through consistency, through the repeated choice to live by your principles, even when no one's watching. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's the essence of reliability. You don't just talk about the life you want. You live it, habit by habit, day by day. Consistency is rare because it's hard. It doesn't come with applause. No one cheers for the quiet morning routine, the uncelebrated kindness, the boring discipline of following through. But these are the things that build trust. And trust is the foundation of any real connection, romantic, professional, or otherwise. When people know they can count on you, even in small ways, they begin to relax in your presence. They feel safe, and that safety is more magnetic than any clever words or temporary charm. Marcus Aurelius led an empire, but he still journaled daily, practiced restraint, and returned to his Stoic exercises even during war. He reminded himself again and again to stay humble, to return to reason, to be diligent with his duties. He didn't aim to be spectacular. He aimed to be steady. That's what gave him gravitas. Not just the crown on his head, but the consistency in his behavior. He became a rock others leaned on, not because he was loud, but because he was reliable. We see this same quiet power in someone like Denzel Washington. He doesn't chase every opportunity. He doesn't need to be everywhere, say everything, or prove his relevance. He picks his roles carefully, speaks with discipline, and holds himself to a code of excellence. And because of that, his presence carries weight. You don't have to wonder what kind of man he'll be tomorrow. He's shown you for decades. That's the power of consistency. It turns your name into a promise. Reliability also speaks to how you handle relationships. Do you follow through on your word, even when it's inconvenient? Do you show up when you say you will, respond when it matters, and stay calm when others panic? These aren't dramatic traits, but they are rare, and because they are rare, they are valuable. The person who is consistent becomes a refuge in a chaotic world, not because they solve every problem, but because they don't flinch when others do. The Stoics believed your actions were your philosophy, not your quotes, not your identity, your actions. And consistency is action repeated, tested, refined. It's not perfection, it's integrity. It's what you choose when no one is looking. It's the decision to be kind even when annoyed, to be patient even when rushed, to be disciplined even when tired. And it creates a quiet strength that people don't just admire, they trust. If you want to be silently attractive, be consistent in who you are. Let your presence be predictable in the best way. Not boring, but grounded. Be the person who does what they say, who shows up even when it's inconvenient, who keeps promises not because it's easy, but because it's right. Let your reliability speak louder than any self-promotion ever could. Because in a world full of noise, the one who simply follows through becomes the one everyone depends on. And that kind of quiet dependability, it doesn't fade. It deepens. It builds legacy. And it turns the ordinary into something unforgettable. Not because you were the loudest in the room, but because you were the one who always kept the light on. The one who didn't flinch. The one who could be counted on. And in the end, that's what people remember. That's what they respect. And that's what silently attracts, without ever needing to boast. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to be the flashiest, and you definitely don't need to chase anyone's attention. Because real power, real attractiveness, doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't perform. It resides in presence, in discipline, in how you carry yourself when no one's watching. The Stoics taught us that the most magnetic people are those who govern themselves, who move with purpose, listen with depth, speak with clarity, and choose restraint over noise. Each of the 11 habits we've explored in this video isn't about impressing the world. It's about aligning with the best version of who you already are. And when that alignment is real, when it's lived, not performed, you won't need to ask for respect. It will follow you. So start small, one habit at a time, one choice at a time. Make your silence powerful. Make your presence intentional. And remember, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. If this resonated with you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's ready to reclaim their quiet power. This is Stoic philosophy for those who are done chasing and ready to become. We'll see you in the next one. Stay silent. Stay strong.